Okay guys, great to have you back checking out another one of my videos. I appreciate it again, as I always say, I really do appreciate it. As a small YouTuber and refiner and e-waste recycler, I appreciate people who take the time to watch my videos, give me advice and anything like that. So for today's video, what I'm going to be working on again is, you've probably seen I've done a lot of videos lately, or in the process of doing them, maybe I haven't them all up yet, of getting the gold from these gold pins and stuff like that, and pins like them, which will be a future video as well. But for today's one, it's going to be the CPU pins. So these pins came from CPU, so this is part of the series gold recovery from CPU pins. So you'll see in the previous videos how I got these pins, where they came from, stuff like that. So what I'm going to do, if my scales decides to work, I'm going to weigh out 100 grams of CPU pins. So we're just going to put about 100 grams in. The method I'm going to be using today is going to be the nitric, and before everyone starts giving out saying, oh, there's other ways of doing it, I know there's other ways of doing it. I will be doing videos on the other processes such as AP, but for this video it's the nitric version I'm doing. So let's not all get worked up in the comments saying there's other ways, blah blah. I know that, and my channel is about all the different ways that I do it. So again, just because I don't do the way you want it done first straight away doesn't mean it won't be done at some stage. Let's see how we're there fixing them pins. 95. So we'll just try and get it up to the 100 grams if we can. Now I will be doing all these pins at some stage. It's just I wanted for the video, I'm just going to do a 100 gram sample. So we're almost there. Just need to get rid of 1 more gram. Doesn't want to go. There we go, 100 grams of CPU pins ready to go into the nitric acid. So as I was saying already, just because this isn't the one you want to watch, and people will be saying, oh, this is more expensive, this is not as cost effective as AP or whatever. The reason I'm doing it in nitric is it's the quickest way. My scale seems to be playing up. I'm at 130 something grams now, so I don't know, is that the scales? So I might have to get different scales and reweigh that before I do it. Let's just check something here. So that's 0. Let's pour them off. Let's see, do we get to 100? No, we've more than 100. I'll reweigh that again and I'll check it, because I think it's the scales is playing up. I'll reweigh it and check it to see, but I'll leave it at 100 grams once I get it to 100 grams. I have another scales that I'll use, because that one doesn't seem to be, as you can see, it's gone to minuses. It's crazy. So we just zero it, and I'll just recheck. Yeah, it's in around 100 anyhow. So I'll reweigh it and check it, but yes, I know it's not the most cost effective way, it is the nitric, but it is the quickest way, I find. So as you can see, like in my previous videos where I used the nitric, instead of it being a week sitting in AP to work, it was done in a day, maybe 2 days, depending on the strength of your nitric and how much heat you apply to it and stuff like that. So what I'll do now is I'll just get a jar and I'll pour these into the jar once I weigh them to make sure there's 100 grams there, and then I'll add the water, and then I'll add the nitric to it, and we'll see the reaction, and we'll take it from there, and we'll go from there. So this is the nitric version. There will be an AP version coming, how to remove the thing from it, and if you can't get nitric, you can use a nitric substitute. I will do a video on that where you can do poor man's nitric. So again, some people can't get their hands on nitric, so you can do a poor man's version. So I'll be doing that as well. So keep an eye out for that video. If you want it, some people do. It's up to yourself. You can soak these in HCl first to remove the actual solder that's here, but the nitric will eat all that away. It's just if you want it to be more cost effective on your nitric, you could do that. Wash it in to make sure there's no HCl left in it, because if there is, when you add the nitric, you create acaricia, and then you could end up dissolving your gold. And if you don't test your solution afterwards, to make sure there's no gold in the solution, you'll be throwing away gold. So let's get this into a jar, let's get the water on it, and let's get the nitric and let's get the reaction going, and we'll see what's happening. Okay, so I've got the better scales, which took a bit of looking. So I've left that on top of it, which is the same weight as the container these are in, and we'll see what the exact weight is. So 132, so we're way above the amount of grams that I needed. So let me go in there and zero that. So that's why it's important to have a right scales. That still seems to be very, very so we'll get back. Ooh, gone too far, so take a few out. What do we add? 106. Okay, so that's saying 100 grams. We'll pour the rest back into the jar. So we'll double check it again just to make sure. So the container 0, 99, 100, near enough. Okay, so we've got our 100 grams of the pins from the CPUs. We've our jar. So I'm just going to add these 100 gram into the jar. Again, spread them out as best I can. There's a few bits in there which aren't gold pins. They're like little bits of rubber that came off when the CPUs were being heated up. For this, I'll use nitric, but I'll dilute it again, same as I did last time on the last pins. So we're just going to cover this with water. Okay, so the CPU pins are now submerged in distilled water, so you can see them in there. Okay, so for the next part then, I'm going to add nitric, and this time instead of pouring 10 mils in, I'm going to put it in with a little I don't know how you call it, a little dropper. So yeah, I've a dropper out there which you can put 10 mil, 5 mil, whatever into it. So we'll start off in 10 mil measures. Again, very important when I'm doing this that I'll have my mask on and I'll have my gloves on. So guys, again, make sure the safety gear as always is important. So that's the proper mask, which I'll be wearing with the proper filters for acid, and I'll be wearing that, and I'll be dropping in the nitric in probably 10 mil at a time until I get a reaction. Once I get the reaction, I'll leave it, and then I'll add more if I need to. At a later stage I can add more water, but again, be careful as always. Remember the rule, acid to water, not water to acid. So if you do need to add water to the acid, so say I find out I need to dilute that down a bit more, I'll put in very, very small amounts. I won't pour in a lot at one time because it'll get boil over. Again, you can add heat to speed it up, or if the weather's good like it is at the moment in Ireland, I can leave it out in the sun and it will speed it up for me. So we'll go and we'll set up now and we'll add the nitric to this, and once we've done that, we'll be checking it back every couple of days or whatever, every couple of hours, and we'll see how the reaction is going, and we'll be able to add or if as we need, or if we need to just let it evaporate for a while to drop some of the levels, we can let it evaporate with the heat and then we can add more. So check out when I've set up the outside. Okay, so we're ready to go. So this is what I'm going to be using to drop the, sorry, go and focus. It's a 10mm dropper, so I'll use that. I can't think of the right word now for it, but I'll use that to drop my nitric. So again, I'm outside. Okay, so we have 10mm there, and we'll drop it slowly in and we'll see if we start getting a reaction. Okay, we'll leave that for a second. We'll just see if the reaction comes. As you can see, I have my gloves on. So we're getting a little bit of bubbling starting off. Yeah, so she's beginning to react there. The acid is beginning to do its work. It's beginning to mix with the water, and we'll leave that. If I need to add more acid, I'll add it later, but for this part I'll leave it at that. We'll come back in a while and we'll see how we got on. Okay guys, so this is the one that I'm working on from the CPU pins, and as you can see, if we look into it, you can see the gold floating around in there. So the jar is quite filled at the moment, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to siphon it off into another jar so that I don't lose any of my gold. So what I'm going to do is just going to pour it off into another jar, and then that way then we can add more water and nitric and start again for the rest of the remainder of them. I just don't want to lose any of these gold pins, so you can see them there along the jar. You can see the gold, you can see down into the jar. Still a lot to be done, and this one then has some more gold floating around in it, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't lose any of them. So that one I can put aside. It won't, nothing more reaction will happen in that, because there's no metal in it, it's just gold, so it'll settle down, it'll clear up, and we'll be just left with gold. And in this one I'm just going to add more water and start again, because it had a very vigorous reaction, and when it had a little bit of an overflow. So at the time I did have a catch jar, which was good, but I don't want it to happen a second time. So I'm just going to refill this with water, add a bit of nitric and get it going again, and then once they're done we should be ready to filter it. I have a little magnet here that I can move the stuff around with, the pins, to make sure we get them all done in different places. Okay, so check back later and see how we got on. Okay guys, so I've added the, I'll just stand back and zoom in instead. I've added a bit of heat to the CPU pins, and you can see there the gold all floating on the top. Vigorous reaction. I'll just keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't boil over, but it has speeded up the process big time, so it shouldn't take as long once the heat has worked on them. So I'll take them off the heat, leave it off for a while to cool down again, because we don't want it to boil over, and it shouldn't take that long till we're nearly at the filtering stage of it, which is great. Okay guys, so it's been about 3 days since I started the CPU pins in nitric, and as we can see in the jar here, you can see the actual pins floating around in here, and I have a second jar with pins floating around as well. So what I'm going to do now is filter these off, and then there might be more pins at the bottom that haven't been done fully yet, but I can put them in with another batch that I'll be doing at some stage. But for this video I just want to try and filter them off now. I'm going to put my mask on because again there will be nitric in that, so I'm just putting the mask on, and I have gloves on, and I'll stick the heavier duty gloves on as well over them, because nitric is a nasty acid and you don't want to get burned by it. So I'll just put on the other gloves that's going over. I usually do this outside, but the weather has turned nasty and wet, so I don't want to be getting any water, rainwater and wet when I'm doing it into the solutions, because this nitric may be strong enough to use on more pins depending on, I'll see how it's worked on this. So all I'm going to do is essentially pour it off into the filter. So we'll just open the first jar. Oh, don't spill it. You can see the pins in there. Nice blob of gold pins. So we're just going to pour that gently off into the filter. So here they come, that's the majority of them. So you can see there's still pins down there, so with gold on them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wash some of this nitric back in there, wash it around it to make sure it gets all the pins out. Again, just leave that dripping away there for the moment. I also have the second solution. So again, I'm going to just pour that off nice and easy into it. And we'll just let that filter. I'll even put some into this jar to wash this jar around a bit. You can see the pins down there at the bottom floating around, so we'll leave that for a minute. Okay guys, so I'm going to let that do its work. That'll just filter away nice and easy. Once it's all fully filtered, we'll see what we've left with in pins from that 100 grams of CPU pins that I started with. So I'll let all this run through, and then I'll wash out them with distilled water, what's left in the jars, into thing. I just want to let all the nitric through so I can save the nitric and maybe use it again. It may still have a certain amount of nitric left in it to dissolve pins. I'd see how well they're done on these pins. If these pins aren't all dissolved, then it might be any good, but if the pins are all dissolved, there's just the gold pins left, there may be still some nitric that can be used on a future one. So we'll come back and see how we get on once that's all filtered through. Okay guys, so this is the CPU one. After filtering it, you can see the water is very dirty, but there's something else I'm not very happy with, is the amount of magnetic stuff still left in there. So the nitric hadn't fully done it. I went too soon. So I'm going to have to redo it. I'm going to have to put it back into nitric, which isn't a major thing to have to do. I'll just have to redo it, because you can see here, if I run a magnet through the liquid, so you don't want some of it doesn't stick to it, some of it does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to take out all the magnetic stuff and put all that back in. So you can see there underneath all that magnetic stuff. So I have a jar there that I'm throwing it all back into. So this is going back into this jar. So the mistake I made was I didn't put it into hot HCl beforehand. Sometimes you don't have to, but if you don't put it into hot HCl to get rid of the tin and the solder and stuff like that off it, it takes longer, and I misjudged my times and I thought it was ready to filter, but it wasn't. So you can see there all that stuff that has to go back into the jar. So we'll just squirt that back down into it. So that's so again, we'll just put the magnet back into this little bag I have. And I'll just run it through again and see what else we can pick up. So some of it is ready, some of it isn't. So it's try and clear out what isn't ready to go. So I'll just run the magnet over it, and again a bit less this time. So I'll just take the magnet off because it won't wash down where the magnet is there, holding it in place. Again, just lift the magnet off. Some of it will try and follow the magnet up. And just wash down whatever pins come up with it. So it's not going to be major hold up for me or major headache. It's just a bit more, put it back into the nitric again, that's all, and leave it a bit longer this time. The stuff that I've gone through here now is ready to be filtered. Anything that kind of doesn't come up with the magnet after I run it through a few times. Is the actual gold flakes then that are left, and I can just refilter them and work with them, and then you want to make sure that you have all the metals out, because if you don't, it'll be issues later on. So we're getting there. So I'll just carry on this, guys, and I'll refilter, and this stuff that I've taken out will be put back in with nitric into it to redo it. It is fairly dirty because again, I didn't boil it in nitric, or not nitric, boil it in HCl beforehand to get rid of any of the solder and stuff. I thought I could get away with it. Probably could have if I left it longer or added more nitric, but I didn't. So when I went to filter it, I discovered that there was still a lot of magnetic stuff in there. So that's what you get for rushing it, guys. So I'm not going to hide anything. When stuff goes wrong, I'll show it the same as when stuff goes right. So, you know, learn from my mistakes, don't do the same thing, and again, you know, I'll remember for the next time. Okay, guys, so I discovered my issue with the CPU pins with a little help from a forum group on Facebook. The cloudy stuff that was sitting at the bottom of the jar was actually oxides, so the acid was still dissolving stuff, but it was putting it back, so the iron and tin and stuff like that, so it was putting it back into solids in the solution. So what I had to do was I had to decant it into another jar, so that's why I have two jars now, and add more nitric acid, and that cleared up the thing, and the pins now are all ready to be filtered out. Now I won't lie, guys, I did have a little accident and spilled some, so I did lose some pins, because I was in a rush doing something and I ended up spilling some of the pins, which is not what the plan was, as you can imagine. So I did lose some pins, and so as I say, I never try and hide anything from anyone. Let that go nice and easy there now for a second, and let that filter down through. So as you can see in here, you can see there's pins still in here, so, and there is some solids at the bottom, but we'll wash them down and I'll put them in afterwards. So inside of that solution will be there'll be tin, iron, silver. So that solution I'll put into a bucket, a stock pot, and at a later time, if silver prices go up a bit, I can try and get the silver back out of the platinums, any of that sort of stuff that might be still in there, that may be still in solution. That's why I'll process them further and further and further, but for the moment I just wanted to get the gold foils from the CPU pins. So I'm just going to filter these through, guys. I'll just get probably another filter and start another jar and filter them through and dry them out, put them in a little tub, and we'll see what we have. So you don't need to see me going through the filtration side of it, because you know what's happening. I have done another version, or I will be doing another version of this video, where I use hydrochloric acid at the start to boil off any of the, hydrochloric acid, boiling hydrochloric acid to burn off and dissolve any of the tin and any of that sort of stuff, and hopefully then I won't need to use as much nitric the next time to get the gold off, but you never can tell. That's the thing about this, and as I say, I'm no expert on it. I'm just showing what I'm going through and showing you the mistakes I make so you can learn from them. If you're going to decide to do it, you won't make the same mistake I make and stuff like that. I'll just come back once I filter these through. Okay guys, so these are the CPU pins. These are the ones that I had the issue with, and I lost a few because I dropped the jar, if I'll be honest, and spilled some of them, but I managed to collect up as many as I could. This is them kind of filtered through. You can see them all lining up all along there. So all I'm just going to do is spray down the bottle. Let me set it up and just spray them down so they all fall down into the centre of it, and then I'll let it drain out, and I'll let that dry, and then CPU pins then will be added to another batch of CPU pins that I'm working on. So I'm doing another one of these videos with CPU pins. This time I would have treated them with hydrochloric first, so we just can see if it makes much of a difference. Because the nitric, I probably won't have to use as much nitric. This I had to use nitric, I had to decant, and I had to do a second batch and blah 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 to get it to work. So as I say, I don't claim to know everything. This is just how I do it. Other people have a different way. And this one in here then is some more of the CPUs, but this one is a lot dirtier. So what I do is I'll keep that separate. So when I'm doing my Acarija, which I'll have two separate batches. I'll have ones with dirty bits of dirt and stuff like that in them, and there'll be these cleaner ones which will be more cleaner pins. So that's kind of it for the video, guys, because the next time you'll see these pins will be when I've done a few more batches, because I'm going to try and do this full. Let me grab it from where I put it. I'm just going to complete these lot of these, and I'll put all the pins, or put all the foils from them all in one batch of Acarija, just to get a better thing. There's no point putting only a small amount of pins in, or foils, and then having to do it again and probably waste some nitric and hydrochloric acid. So it's better to have a bigger batch going in, and I can just keep adding the nitric bit by bit, and until all the pins are dissolved, or all the foils are dissolved, and then we'll be able to do a drop on them as well. So guys, thanks for watching this video, I appreciate it, and until the next one, keep on looking for the gold. Make sure you're sharing this out, make sure you're subscribed if you want to see how these turn out, how much gold we end up getting in the end from these pins. Again, if you want to go back and see how many pins there was at the start, check out one of the videos there. I've done that on this series. You'll see at the start of the first video or the second video of this series, you'll see how much pins there was at the start, and just watch that and you'll get an idea. Then we'll try and get a yield. Now again, allowing for the bit I'd lost, which was my own fault, but these things happen. I had the jar in my hand and it slipped from my hand, and I lost some of the pins. So just one of them things. So guys, until the next one, keep on looking for that gold.